Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council regular council meeting. Item number 1 is call to order. Council meetings can be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Members of the public may also attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams. If you have signed up to speak on items later on in the agenda, please know that as the presiding officer, I have the discretion to introduce items out of their regular order as listed on the agenda. I may change the order of items from time to time to accommodate scheduling to allow us to address items with a large number of speaker cards, so those wishing to speak on those items don't have to wait until later in the meeting or to otherwise expedite the business of the meeting. If you wish to speak on an agenda item and you haven't filled out a speaker card yet, please make sure to fill out and submit your completed card to the city clerk prior to the item coming forward for council discussion. I will call your name when it is your turn for public comment. Now I'd like to invite everyone who's able and willing to stand to join me in a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Tonight's agenda has a number of items that the City Council must consider in order to conduct city business. Guidelines for conduct at City Council meetings are on the table near the entrance for those in attendance at tonight's meeting. We will now play a video with the proper protocol for ensuring the appropriate conduct at City Council meetings.
The City of Tempe welcomes public comment at this time. Disruptive behavior will not be allowed. Continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. We need to be able to hear everyone in the room. Behavior that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any city council meeting is not helpful and is not permitted. This includes behavior both inside and outside of the council chambers. Should individuals inside the council chambers become disruptive so that city business is not able to be conducted, the mayor will first ask that the individuals allow city business to be completed. There will be time for public comment during the call to the audience portion of the meeting. If no cooperation, the mayor will issue a verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is still no cooperation, the mayor will issue a second verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is no cooperation after asking and 2 verbal warnings, then the mayor will ask security officers to remove only those individuals who are causing the disruption. Security personnel should not engage in any way, but only escort them from the council chambers. If individuals refuse to leave, security personnel shall warn them that they are trespassing and that the next step will be arrest by a Tempe police officer. Tempe officers may have to arrest if individuals refuse to leave. Charges for trespass and disorderly conduct may apply, as well as other charges. Should anyone be asked to be removed, the mayor will recess the meeting.
Thank you very much. We're now going to play a video conveying the City of Tempe's native land acknowledgement statement.
We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the native people who have inhabited this landscape since time immemorial. These ancestral lands of the O'odham, known as Pima, Peeposh, known as the Maricopa, and their ancestors extend far beyond our city. This land continues to be spiritually connected to the O'odham of the Salt River Pima, Maricopa Indian Community, and Gila River Indian Community. We accept the responsibility of stewarding those places and solemnly pledge to consider this commitment in every action.
Thank you so much. We're going to move now next to item number 4, meeting minutes. Tonight I'll be assisted by Councilmember Keating. Councilmember Keating.
That mic doesn't work either. Thank you, Mayor. I move we approve items 4A, 1 through 2.
It's been moved by Councilmember Keating. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Hodge. Please vote.
Yes.
Councilmember Amberg.
Yes, sorry.
Aye.
Okay. And that vote passes unanimously 7-0. Next up, item 4B, acceptance of board, commission, and committee meeting minutes. Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. I move we approve items 4B, 1 through 6.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Keating. Do I have a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor Garland. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item also passes 7-0. Next up, item 5A, mayor's reports and announcements. I have one, and I will come down to read this one. Is Rachel Sackett here this evening? Oh, yes, there we go.
You got to turn it on.
Good to see you. All right, good evening. Item 5A1 is a proclamation designating September as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And that proclamation reads, whereas ovarian cancer is the 5th leading cause of death among women, and the American Cancer Society estimates each year approximately 19,680 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2024, and 12,740 individuals will die from the disease nationwide, including 460 new cases and 310 deaths in Arizona. And whereas in the United States, a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is about 1 in 87. And whereas due to vague symptoms and the lack of reliable early detection tests, most women are not diagnosed until stage 3 or later, when the cancer has already begun to spread to the lymph nodes and outside of the pelvis. And whereas although the 5-year survival rate for stage 1 ovarian cancer is over 90%, only 15% of ovarian cancers are diagnosed at this early stage. And the 5-year survival rate for late stage ovarian cancer is below 30%. And whereas while a mammogram can detect breast cancer and a pap smear can detect cervical cancer, there is no reliable early detection test for ovarian cancer. And whereas women's lives can be saved through increased public awareness of ovarian cancer and its risk factors, signs, and symptoms. And whereas this month, the city of Tempe joins all those who are battling ovarian cancer, those who have lost their lives to the disease, their loved ones, and our state's many dedicated healthcare workers in spreading awareness, committing to public education, and embracing hope for better diagnoses, treatments, and a cure. And whereas I encourage all residents of the city of Tempe to observe Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month and support the cause that so deeply impacts families in every community across our country. Now, therefore, I, Corey Woods, Mayor of the city of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare September 2024 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in Tempe, Arizona. Thank you very much. Next up, we have item 5B, City Manager's Reports and Announcements. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one announcement, and I think Eddie's bringing up some photos of today. Today, we had the honor of attending Fire Chief Deputy City Manager Greg Reese being inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Arizona Fire School, which is a very prestigious honor. We were there to celebrate him. He is not here tonight because his festivities continue. He is at the Hall of Flame tonight, receiving the award twice. So that tells you something. Very few people receive this award in the fire science. And for those of you who do not know Chief Reese, he has served fire science in the fire science business for 34 years, 29 here at the City of Tempe in the Tempe Fire Medical Rescue Department in one department. Many of us moved from one department to another. He has served one department and has served this community so well. Most prestigious award that you can get in the fire science business, and most importantly, he was nominated by his peers. So thank you to all who were able to attend today, and I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge my colleague and friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam City Manager. Just a note really quickly here. I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to do this, but I think There is actually going to be a language change that I'm going to be proposing on item 7C3, which is about city council rules. And I will be proposing that later, but I also want to make sure that we're not taking the vote before people have an opportunity to speak. But I just wanted people to know that I'm going to read some changes. Actually, I might read them into the record now. We won't take the vote right now. Is that okay? And I can just, Mr. City Attorney?
There we go. Apologize, Mayor. Mayor, I recommend that you wait till the item is called before we read them in, so, because we'll need a motion to have those, so.
Would it be okay to, just as a note, to bring the item up and then table it and get back to it by chance? I just want to make sure that. the
Yeah,
public is
certainly you
here.
can take it out of
Okay.
order as you,
So what I'll do then, just to make sure that, we don't vote before this actually takes place, I'm going to bring the item up, then we can actually table the item, and we'll come back around to it later in the meeting to allow people to speak first. So, but I wanted to read, so hearing some of the concerns about this item, and I'll talk more about it at the point that we actually get to the item, but one of the changes that I'm seeking to make here, and I was working on this afternoon with the city attorney, is that the original language here that was on the agenda said, let me make sure I pull this up. So we're taking item 7C3, excuse me, that's easy for me to say. So the original language actually that's proposed on tonight's agenda said, in the interest of the efficiency or fairness of the meeting, the mayor may limit each speaker to less than 3 minutes. So that was what the original language says that's actually on this evening's agenda. So the language I was working on this afternoon, because I feel like it was not capturing exactly what we were attempting to do in the situation in terms of language cleanup, just states here, and once again, I'll say this and we quickly table this and then get to people's comments, but is, in the interest of allowing all members of the public to have an opportunity to speak, in the case that there is such a large number of persons intending to speak during the meeting that it may deprive other members of the public from the reasonable opportunity to speak, the mayor may limit each speaker to less than 3 minutes. The reason why I bring this up now is only to, and I'll read this when we get back to 7C3, is that the first item I understand was not very descriptive, but one of the things is that we have always given people 3 minutes during the entire time I've been here, this is now my 13th year on this body. Even before I was mayor, 3 minutes was always the standard time. And we're going to continue to give everyone 3 minutes who wants to come up. Anyway, also, but we want to make sure though, if there are issues where I should also mention, we have to finish meetings technically by 11:59 in the evening. This meeting, as an example, was posted for Thursday, September 5th. It's not posted for September 6th. So sometimes we did have meetings occasionally that would run very late, and we would kind of begin to run into the next day, and we were informed then we could not go into the next day because the meeting was not posted for that next day. There were a couple of times just last year, as an example, when we were having the vote on the Tempe Entertainment District, where I know that we knew early on that that was going to be a controversial issue, and when we actually posted the agenda the Friday before, the comment cards began to roll in that Friday and over the weekend to the point where we actually had well over 100 cards at the point that we got to that Thursday meeting. And I ended up moving the meeting up that time from our 6 p.m. start time to a 2 p.m. start time, just to make sure that we had time to give everyone their 3 minutes that they wanted to have during that meeting. Because, just doing the math, 100 people speaking for 3 minutes is 300 minutes, which is about 5 hours. And so I wanted to make sure when we knew an issue was going to be controversial that we could adjust the start time to ensure that everyone can come and everyone actually gets their 3 minutes to speak. But sometimes there are issues that come up that we're not aware are going to be as controversial. And so sometimes things sneak up on us a little bit, and we want to make sure that we don't have a situation where on any given night we have a lot of people who show up, maybe 50 or 70 people, and they'd like to talk, and we start running into a situation where we're getting past 11:30 and we're getting to a place of, oh my gosh, people have not had a chance to speak. They've been sitting here all night, and we're going to have to end this meeting at midnight, and we might have to send people home without the opportunity to speak, which would obviously make people extremely upset. We want to ensure that anyone who wants to come here, because we frankly know if you're coming here sometimes, you might have to find childcare. If you're working in the evening, you might have to get time off from work to actually come to petition your government. Anytime you do that, we want you to have the opportunity to have your 3 minutes. And previously, before, there was a rule in the approved council rules that actually was already here when I started as mayor that basically said the public appearances shall be limited to an aggregate total of 60 minutes, meaning that technically speaking, for the last 4+ years since I've been mayor, once we got to an hour under the council rules, I should have actually said, well, we're done. We've taken an hour of public comment. But obviously, I've never done that, and I never will. The reality is, we understand that people have very important issues that they want to come down and speak to us about. And so from my perspective, as long as I happen to occupy this seat, people are always going to get their 3 minutes. And we are not going to keep an aggregate total of 60 minutes. We're going to sit here for as long as we have to make sure that every person who comes down here has the opportunity to be heard. I joked earlier that I've got a whole fridge of Coke Zero upstairs and one in front of me right now. So if I have to drink 3 of these just to make sure that we can get through the entire evening and everyone gets their 3 minutes, that's what we're going to do tonight, and that's what we're going to continue to do for as long as I happen to occupy this chair. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure, if in the rare occasion, and frankly, it is a rare occasion, that we have a situation where we get 70 or 80 or 90 people and we're not anticipating that I have the flexibility needed. And frankly, the chair's always had the flexibility to adjust the time if necessary, even though I've never actually exercised that because I don't want to. I think people need their 3 minutes. But at the same time, I want to make sure that if you come out, we give you the opportunity to speak and we don't run out of time for the meeting and people have to go home after sitting here for 5 or 6 hours. And so that was the reason for the change. It was to clean up some of that language and take out that conversation about the aggregate total of 60 minutes, since I'm never going to abide by that. I'm always going to let people speak, and to make sure that we had the ability to adjust the 3 minutes in situations where we had a large number of speakers. And if I had to say, hey, if there are 100 speakers here, maybe we might go from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, just to ensure that every person who actually shows up in this chamber or actually speaks virtually has the opportunity. But no one should ever go home from a council meeting after sitting here for hours without the opportunity to voice their opinion to myself and the members of this council. And I know that's a value that each and every one of us share. So with that said, I will read that language again when it gets back to the item. We can table this item for now and we can get to the public comment, but I wanted to make sure just to provide a little bit of clarification, because I know there had been some conversation about this before people have the opportunity to address us. But once again, anyone who's here is going to have the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to it. So with that said, do I need a motion to table that item? Or can I just table it?
Mayor, I think you can table it.
Okay, then on the rare occasion I have that authority, I will just table that item. All right. So with that said, then we will now go to item number 6, which is public appearances. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the City Council may only discuss matters listed elsewhere on this agenda for discussion and legal action. The purpose of the open call to the public is to allow individuals to address the City Council on any issue within the jurisdiction of the City Council. No person shall speak more than once, and there is a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers present at the podium must state their name and city of residence and provide a speaker card. Members of the public shall refrain from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks and from becoming boisterous while addressing the City Council or while attending the meeting. Speakers will be taken first come, first served in the order in which the cards are received. Speakers' visual aids and appearances by phone or recordings are not allowed. Council members are prohibited by state law from taking action on, commenting, or discussing a matter raised by a member of the public, even if asked to do so by a member of the public, so long as the subject discussed by the speaker is not listed as a specific agenda item for council's consideration for discussion and legal action. At the conclusion of public appearances, the council may ask the city manager to review a matter or place a matter on a future agenda. With that said, I'm going to get to item number 6 here, public appearances. We have a few this evening. The first person is Andre Jackson. Is Mr. Jackson here? Okay. The next speaker I have this evening is Mario Martinez. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mario Martinez. I live in Tempe. My comments were premised on the rules change for public comment, which I oppose, so I'm going to modify my comments accordingly. The public comments, are very important. I get a great deal out of them. And unfortunately, Corey, is a prime example of why we need it, because he has conducted himself in a uniquely evasive official fashion. We know from his actions that when, and it's important for public speakers to point that out, we know from his actions that when Corey City Hall subordinate employees state that Corey is not responsible for City Hall actions, Corey is not only responsible, but he lacks the professional integrity to admit it. That is a problem. Okay, in the last public hearing, there was extensive discussion on the case of Austin Davis, which is an important reason why we need the speakers. Corey's City Hall line is that the mayor and council are not responsible for prosecuting Mr. Davis, which is blatantly false. Prosecutors have and always have the prosecutorial discretion, and the prosecutors involved in the Davis case are paid for and managed by Corey and the city manager. In contrast to some cowardly officials, when the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that the Arizona territorial abortion law was the law of the land, Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays immediately stated that she would not enforce it. And that is the problem. And Corey, if Corey was at least straightforward, he could say, look, I feel that we should prosecute Mr. Davis and tell the reasons. It's being very disingenuous to have your PR of people put out some false information. Another reason why it is we need it is, once again, with Corey Woods. Okay, with the Coyote proposal, he was supporting the $500 million tax giveaway to the Coyotes, and not only did he do that, Corey enacted a covert social media program at taxpayers' expense, and he didn't tell the public about it until there was a public information comment of that. I mean, spending taxpayer money without telling the taxpayer why you did that, that's another example of why we did this. And Corey, it's about time that you're under investigation for the Attorney General right now for violations of public, the open possibility of public meeting laws. That it was, I believe that was the law. But anyway, that's why we need public comment.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Michelle Gutierrez. Is Ms. Gutierrez here? Okay. The next speaker is Evan Rogers. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes. Actually, you know what? Yeah.
Anybody?
Perfect. Now we can see you. Just please state your name and just city of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Evan Rogers. I live in the city of Tempe. I'm 10 years old, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I am in 5th grade at Curry Elementary, and I want to share my thoughts about Shalimar. This is why I learned to golf. Coach Cosgrove is a really great coach and taught me and a boy we were fostering how to play. On Thursdays and Fridays, my friends and I gather at the golf course for food trucks. We ride our bikes and play catch with our football while our parents spend time together. I see my teachers at Shalimar along with kids from the high school and Tempe Prep. I love to see the owls and foxes making their rounds. I'm not supposed to fish in the pond, but I do sometimes. But I always catch and release. To me, Shalimar is not a golf course. It's a community gathering space for both people and wildlife. I'm respectfully requesting that you do not rezone Shalimar and cover it with concrete. We must preserve the last open spaces that we have in Tempe. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Evan. Appreciate it. How old are you again?
I'm 10.
Oh my gosh. You're far better than I was at the age of 10, I'll tell you that. Thank you. The next speaker is Eric Menkus.
Thank you, Eddie.
Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name's Eric Mankus. I'm a Tempe resident for the last 30 years. I also teach at ASU, so I have strong ties to the community. Thank you for letting me speak with you for a few minutes. I'm also here to speak about Shalimar, and I'm going to focus on something that Evan actually touched on. I don't live in Shalimar. I don't golf. I'm not really sort of the normal person, I think, that will come here and talk about the density and all of those things. My nature is pretty much a YIMBY, and so I'm not really the sort of natural person to be here speaking and asking you to not rezone at this moment or in the near future when you're being asked to. But really what's happened is that our family moved in just south of Shalimar 10 years ago. And we didn't know it at the time, but Shalimar is really a community hub. It's a place where families get together. It's a place where, I mean, there's golf obviously there, but that's not something my family does. What we do is we meet up with so many people from the community that we would not otherwise know. Shalimar's done a great job of becoming essentially a favorite watering hole, a favorite restaurant, a favorite park in the evening. That when I bring my kids can play with kids from many other schools. You know, there's lots of recent studies out about how kids don't play across grade levels anymore. They only play kind of with their age, but that happens at Shalimar. The current plan, the current rezoning plan doesn't account for any of that. You know, Shalimar's really become sort of part of the fabric of our little corner of Tempe, and I'm asking you to consider that. And what is currently there makes no attempt to preserve any of that. It would be similar to taking out a very small park that a lot of people come to all the time, and I know you all take parks very seriously. So I'm requesting that at this time or in the near future, when you're being asked to, you consider voting no on any sort of rezoning for Shalimar and allow us to work with the owners and the city and prospective developers to come up with something that, you know, has a much better outcome for our little area there and the unique aspects that it provides. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Mulligan. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is David Mulligan. I live here in Tempe, Arizona. I just want to start by saying thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I also live in Shalimar, and I'm just here to represent myself, my family, and my neighbors in expressing our concern over the proposed rezoning of Shalimar. I was just looking over the city's general plan for 2050, and one of the first mentioned guiding principles in there is preservation of neighborhood character, which includes preserving, enhancing, and creating conditions that keep neighborhoods desirable, safe, attractive, and healthy with a strong sense of community. I'm not a golfer myself, so why do I care so much about Shalimar? It's because there's so much to Shalimar more than just golf. My wife and I, when we were married, we had our wedding reception there at Shalimar. We have 4 children that have grown up experiencing a lot of their firsts there at Shalimar, playing golf, disc golf, soccer golf, feeding the ducks in the ponds, spotting owls, catching an occasional glimpse of foxes or coyotes on the course. And like was mentioned before, every week at Shalimar you can find local food trucks, you can find dance classes going on, you can find community gatherings. If this sense of community that's stated and spoken about in the city plan is really important, I think we need to remember that in order for a community to be strong, it needs to have a place to gather. And Shalimar is that place for us. For my kids, it's difficult for them to understand now that we might be losing this wide open green space. It's tough to explain to them how zoning works and city government and those workings, but when we sat down and read those guiding principles together, those are the things that make sense both to them and to my wife and I now, which is protection of open green spaces, wildlife, preservation of neighborhood character, and a place for a community to gather. So respectfully ask that as this topic is comes up in the near future, that you consider the parts of those plans that appeal not only to yourselves as council members and to the developers and lawyers involved, but also to the children and to the families there of Shalimar who will be impacted by that potential rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have this evening is Jack Maverick. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hey guys, my name's Jack. I live in Tempe. And I've noticed that the city of Tempe likes to be technically correct instead of actually correct. So there's a lot of vagueness in a lot of the way that the city ordinances are written. Things aren't really tied to metrics, to numbers, to, if there's more than 40 people, is that an event? Is it more than 60 people? Even the changes you proposed today to the minutes that people are allowed to speak, there's no number attached to that. It's just at whoever's discretion. And right now it's yours. And once that's in law, it'll be whoever the next mayor is. And we have seen in this community for years, the vagueness of these ordinances always favor suppression, oppression, the police. When it comes to like noise violations, for example, there's no, if it's over 89 decibels, then it's a noise violation. It's just whoever complains the loudest. And so, obviously we were here last week speaking to you about dropping the charges against Austin Davis. I really would like the city to drop the charges against Austin Davis. I don't think it benefits the city of Tempe. I don't think it benefits the homeless population. I don't think it benefits the work that you guys do that is positive. But again, as Mario touched on, you guys hide behind the, hey, it's not us, it's the prosecutor, man. And there's these layers of obfuscation and nothing is clearly spelled out. So if feeding the homeless in the park is an event and needs an event permit, then if I go have a birthday party with my kids in the park, do I need an event permit? Apparently not, unless I'm there for more than 4 hours or whatever. There's no numbers attached to this. There's no, hey, if there's more than 100 people, you need an event permit. Hey, if there's live music, you need an event permit. It's just whatever the person there, the park ranger or the cop who drives by, whatever they feel like that day. And so even in the changes that you proposed to 7C, it doesn't state if there's more than 50 people who are speaking, we're going to drop it to X amount of money. It doesn't even state that everybody gets the same amount of time. You could say, hey, that person gets 3 minutes and this other person gets 1 minute. I'm not saying that you would. I'm saying that the language allows you to do so. And I would really wish that when you propose these changes and all this stuff, you be really clear about metrics, targets, and numbers so that we know what to do. And a kid like Austin Davis doesn't wind up with 20-something charges from you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Alex Monti. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Alex. I'm a resident of Tempe. Yeah, you're saying that you aren't targeting the homeless. You aren't trying to sweep them into other cities, that this charge against Austin Davis, it's just permits, right? Well, we know that it's not just about permits. We know how far you're willing to go to bury Austin in these charges. He's facing 6 months in jail or $2,500 per charge, and I know he faces now over 15 charges. You've arrested him, even though he was attempting to comply with your weird rules. He tried to stay out of the parks, but you followed him to his house in Scottsdale. I'm wondering if any other permit violators get the same treatment. So if it's just about permits, right, it's not about the homeless, then why did you use it as a reason to cancel Austin's poetry classes at the library? Like, literally, you cited his repeated defiance as justification to cancel Austin's regular poetry class at the library. Is this still about permits? I'm wondering. You also said that, oh, it's actually because Austin's services to the homeless are harmful to the homeless, even though you've been shown time and time again that that's not true, that Austin has funneled hundreds of people into other services. He's helped hundreds of individuals find shelters, sober living, rental assistance. The list goes on and on. And you have yet to provide us with information as to how he's harming these communities. All right, so is it still just about permits? I'm not sure. We ask that you drop the charges against Austin Davis to show Tempe that you're not going to weaponize the language and pervert the language of permitting codes or Parks and Recs codes or public speaking codes and use them to remove unwanteds from the public spaces or from the discourse. This is the way that you show us that you are not going to do that, is dropping these charges. This is your last opportunity. Drop the charges against Austin Davis, or we'll have to conclude that this was never a permitting issue. This is how the city of Tempe government systematically and methodically criminalizes mutual aid, criminalizes homelessness, and criminalizes dissent. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have this evening for public appearances, but is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council under item 6? If so, please get my attention. Okay, Ms. Till, yes. Ms. Till, quick question too. I know you're signed up under item 7C3. Is this on that item or a different item?
It's on what they've talked about.
Oh, sure, go ahead. Absolutely.
And so I'm Ann Till, City of Tempe. And so, you know, because of the Austin Davis case, I became kind of confused myself on when I need a special use permit. So I did, you know, send Corey a question, and it was sent to Chris and then to Sean Wagner. But the questions were actually, the response I got was kind of vague, you know, kind of whether it was interfering with park activity and a couple other things. I think he clarified that, and this happens all the time, people do exercise and, you know, classes in the park, and I don't know if they're paid or not. It's been happening for years, you know, but so I see those posted, and I wonder, do you need a special use permit? There's one about a neighborhood saying they want to have a potluck and everybody's invited. So I guess we assume that's neighbors, so that's okay, but how many? Because, you know, how many do I need to say if I have a neighborhood potluck? What should I put the limit on so I don't have to have a special use permit? You know, I think that the Austin Davis case has really, you know, brought up a lot of questions about what we are allowed to use our public park for. I mean, I think we've always assumed we can just go there and do kind of what we want, but you know, we don't also, you know, it should be fair to everybody, and we don't want to violate the policy, you know, so the number actually is a lot of the questions, you know, and can I have an Easter egg hunt? Because sometimes a lot of people come to those, and bike parades, and there's all kinds of things like that might be considered a special event. And my game night, that might be a big event. Do I need a special event permit for that? I don't think so, because I think the city already has that covered, but do I if it's big? I don't know. So I just kind of thought about that as they were speaking, because how many people is probably a relevant thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on item number 6? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing that, I will close that portion of the meeting. And I will move over here to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be considered as a group and will be enacted with one motion by the City Council unless an item is removed for separate consideration. Members of the public may remove public hearing items for separate consideration. Public hearing items are designated as public hearing item at the beginning of the item title. Council members may remove any item for separate consideration or to declare a conflict of interest. If a council member would like to declare a conflict at this time, the city clerk will provide the council member with a disclosure form. If you wish to speak on a public hearing item, please fill out a speaker card and submit your completed card to the city clerk prior to the agenda item coming forward for council discussion. I will call your name when it is your turn for public comment. So this evening, the consent agenda is listed as miscellaneous items 7A1 through 7A3, awards of bids and contracts, items 7B1 through 7B11, and resolutions, items 7C1 through 7C4. I will be pulling item 7C3 off the agenda, which was the council rules of procedure resolution. And is there anything else that any other council member would like to have pulled from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Garland and seconded by Councilmember Keating. Uh-oh, my thing timed out here. Is this me?
Aye.
Okay, let's do this here. I'll do a roll call, but actually, Tanya, can you come take a look at the, yeah, my screen just apparently just timed out for some reason. So I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Amberg.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Garland. Aye. Councilmember Adams. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Councilmember Keating. Yes. And I vote aye as well. The consent agenda is passed. Oh, Councilmember Chin, I'm sorry. That's the problem with going all this roll call stuff. Thank you very much. Now that item passes unanimously. Thank you so much, and so sorry. She probably has the code.
Okay.
That's the. It takes a village around here. It really does. All right. So that takes us then back to item 7C3. Yes, absolutely. So let's go over there. Item 7C3 is to adopt a resolution approving the Tempe City Council Rules of Procedure related to updates to the council subcommittee structure. Just want to note too, this item requires an affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of all council members, which means 5 out of 7 votes are required for approval. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and read the proposed change language. Give me 1 second here, since it's shut down. There we go. The proposed change language is listed as, in the interest of allowing all members of the public to have an opportunity to speak, in the case that there is such a large number of persons intending to speak during the meeting that it may deprive other members of the public from the reasonable opportunity to speak, the mayor may limit each speaker to less than 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and take the public comment, though, on this item. I've got 2 speakers here. The first speaker I have this evening is Ann Till. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello again. I'm Ann Till, Tempe, Arizona. And I understand what Mayor Woods said. And I think it's important to make clear in the policy that what was said is stated for future council, because it's likely there will be another mayor someday.
I will agree with that.
The 3-minute speaker time should be maintained, but yet I know there's time limits and there's got to be a way to work around that somehow. And I understand, I've never seen the shall limit be imposed for the 1 hour, you know. And possibly maybe the council could get all the necessary business out of the way quickly and then commit to listening to public comments until midnight, which you said was the end of the time. Perhaps the council could commit to an agenda item continuance for a future meeting date to ensure that everyone will be heard, and then no vote will be made on the topic until all comments are heard. And maybe even there could be one pre-scheduled date per month to take any topic that really got that much comment on it. But typically there isn't a crowd that takes over an hour at most of the meetings I've been. But it's rare when the public shows up in force, and when that happens, it's a strong signal that the city should listen. So that I understand all the constraints, but how can we get everybody to get a chance to talk, you know? When residents have the passion to spend time writing a speech and then come to council meeting, they should be guaranteed a specific amount of time to talk. Not doing so discourages people from showing up. And a 3-minute speech is about just enough time, and many go over the buzzer, and it's unfair to have to update to a shorter speech at the last minute during the meeting. And I also feel like the applicant rebuttal should also be allowed as much time as necessary following a public comment, just because the public comment might be extensive. So anyways, as you know, speakers show up to speak because they care about their city. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Ms. Till, really quickly too, I appreciate what you're saying, and one thing you did say I want to comment on, you're correct that, I mean, that it really is a rare occasion when we would have that many speakers that we would ever have to consider cutting the time from 3 to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Most times, and most issues, we will typically, if we're going to have that level of comment, you're correct, we would probably know, as I talked about with the Tempe Entertainment District before, we knew we were going to have a lot of speakers, and that's why we tried to make that adjustment to move that meeting 4 hours up to start at 2 o'clock, because we knew we were going to have well over 100 speakers, which we did for both of those public hearings. But you're correct. I mean, it would be a very rare occasion, but pretty much 99.9% of the time, people are always going to get
Yeah.
their 3 minutes, because we recognize if people are coming down to council meetings, you're taking time away from your, from people's husbands and wives and families. Some people work at night, and so they have to take time away from their jobs to come down. Some people have to find childcare coverage to come down and speak. And so the last thing we would ever want is for someone to take that time to come down to petition your government and then go home without the opportunity to do so. So I completely agree with you. It really is a critically important part of what we do here. And I agree, it would be the rarest of occasions where something like that would ever happen. And so far in my 4+ years, it hasn't ever happened. I would just like to try to, if we actually know we're going to have a lot of public comment, just start the meeting early to let people still have their 3 minutes and keep things sort of the way that residents, know and expect. So I agree with you. So
Good thing to put in the policy.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Diane Melrose. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Melrose, City of Tempe. First of all, thank you for explaining that more. I had to update my comment. So during the council retreat in June, your consultant referred to citizens who are vocal on social media as corrupt folks trying to infect the neutral residents. Social media has given us new channels to connect with our neighbors, especially during and after the pandemic. We're vocal on social media because we've learned that our frustrations don't belong to us alone, but to a variety of others as well. During this same retreat, your consultant said that the angry folks are not the people you're interested in interacting with, and that the responses you craft should be for everybody else. The negative value judgments expressed during that retreat are hurtful and demeaning. Our opinions matter, and we aren't just angry citizens to be tuned out and turned off. We are passionate residents whose voices and experiences deserve to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have on that item, but is there anyone else wishing to address the council? Yes, Mr. Martinez, please. State your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Mario Martinez. I live in Tempe. I really strongly believe that the rules as the public comments stand right now are sufficient and no change is needed. What is needed is the public being able to bring issues to the attention of the council and the public, issues that quite frankly the council will not address. For example, I talked about the Austin Davis case. I'm equally concerned about even perhaps more so with the covert social media surveillance program that Corey approved in the last election. They say that it's not over until we hear a comprehensive explanation of why our tax dollars were spent for that and why the public was not immediately informed about it. Corey's explanation is we want to enhance public communication, something like that. Corey, how do you enhance public communication by doing secret social media surveillance programs? It just doesn't add up. And these are the types of issues that the council refuses to answer, even the concept or the whole incident. And this is exactly why we need more the public input, because if the council is not going to bring these issues to our attention, we need to be able to bring it to the public's attention so that they can know about it and, quite frankly, take it into consideration when they make decisions about public policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council this evening on item 7C3? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Council, any further comments or questions on item 7C3? Yes, Vice Mayor?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the word changes that you had just spoken into the record.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Garland, I think, and seconded by Councilmember Hodge. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Adams? Oh, and that item
Aye.
passes 7-0. Next up, we're going to try to move, once again, a couple of items up where we actually do have public speakers here this evening. Next up, we're going to go here to item 8B1, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance requesting a zoning map amendment from AG to PCC1 with a planned area development overlay and development plan review for a new single-story commercial development with 4 buildings on 3.75 acres for an NWC Rural and Warner located at 862 East Warner Road. The applicant is Gamage and Burnham. Good evening, Ms. Foss.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. For your record, members of the council, Mayor, my name is Manjula Vaz, the law firm of Gamage and Burnham, 2 North Central Phoenix, 85004. I'm here today to talk about the northwest corner of Rural and Warner. We are coming up with a name. This is our name for now. We're working with the community to come up with a name, so one day we'll have a name.
I was hoping it'd be a more interesting name than Northwest Corner of Rural and Warner, so.
We're going to call it Rural and Warner. We're just going to get rid of Northwest. No, we're working on it. It may be some version of South Tempe and Tally Ho probably in the name. But we're working with the neighbors and they're taking a poll. I'm here tonight on behalf of Thompson Thrift. And this is a corner that I think we've talked about, is going to be a little retail corner. I'm going to give a little bit of a probably extended presentation on the parking and traffic. We've talked to a lot of people and I know we have some support, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of parking and the traffic. Thompson Thrift by itself is a full-service real estate company. They do residential, commercial, and industrial. Just quickly, the rezoning application today is to change it from ag, as it is currently, to PCC1, to Planned Community Center, do a PAD and a DPR for site and landscape. This is the subject property. We've all been talking about it for some time. Here we go in northwest corners, just west of the Postino, and we'll talk a little bit more about that site. Here's the existing site. In the general plan, the site is zoned or designated commercial, and so our application is consistent with the general plan along those corners. As you see here, the existing zoning is ag. What we would like to do is rezone it to PCC1, which is similar to the east corner, and it will have very similar kind of layout and uses. So I want to talk a little bit about the character area. The Corona South Tempe Character Area Plan, as you all know, it has a lot of defining characteristics, but some of them that they talk about a lot is livable restaurants with good shopping. You want good community spaces, walkable, talk a little bit more about that, energetic and outdoor oriented, and encouraging cafes and outdoor dining options that are retail scaled and pedestrian, not big box. And we think that this proposal matches all of that. We have 4 buildings, a mixture of, we have a restaurant building and then restaurant and retail buildings, which I'll show you on the site plan. With outdoor patio space, we have 235 vehicle parking spaces, 38 bike spaces, and then we have extensive landscape buffers from the adjacent neighborhood to the north and west. So just to give you a sense of how the site plan lays out, what we have done is pulled all the buildings to the street, so you can obviously see the buildings are adjacent to Rural and Warner, and you can see the easy pedestrian connections. We have an open parking lot adjacent to the neighbors with big landscape buffers. And we've worked with the neighborhood and the community, kind of both. Andy spent a lot of time working both, make sure the solid waste needs to be someplace, but away as far as we can from kind of where it goes with the neighbors, and then in terms of our landscape buffer. But in addition, we have several pedestrian connections. So hopefully for everybody who's walking from the neighborhoods, I know some of you live near there, and on their bikes, both on Warner and Rural, you have easy access and entry into the development. Talk a little bit about parking. As required by code, we are required to have 264 parking spaces. However, we think given this kind of a neighborhood center, it's probably a little bit more than we need. And so these are some neighbors. Jamie Blakeman, who's our traffic engineer, is here if you want to talk to her more about it, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit about parking. We believe using the ITE, you would have an average Saturday parking demand of 216, so we have more than enough spaces. On a weekday, we would see about 176 spaces. We have provided 235 spaces. We've also provided additional, more than required bike parking spaces in the hope that this is more of a neighborhood center. It's not a grocery store. This will be a neighborhood center that people can walk to and bike, and therefore we won't, we think we have about 29 parking spaces less than required by code. We think we'll be fine. To give you a little sense of that, here's some comparable developments. At the northeast corner and northwest corner of McClintock and Warner, what they have in terms of restaurants, they have 5 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. On this property, we have 8 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. So in terms of kind of turnover, we think this is kind of a good parking demand and kind of how we've based our parking inventory. We'll talk a little bit about so these are the sites that are across the street. Obviously, we all talk a lot about the Postino site in northeast corner. And some of you may remember how this transpired. And the Postino site was originally an adaptive reuse site. It was originally I believe a Circle K, although I get that confused between 7-Eleven. But it was Circle K, and so it was parked for that type of neighborhood center. When Tempe Public Market came along, they were allowed to make a restaurant, but it was underparked. So what you can see here is then, with Tempe Public Market, I think you actually had okay parking, even with the restaurants and some retail. Over time, you had the middle range of whatever was after Tempe Public Market, you had more than enough parking. Postino, certainly we don't have the turnover of tables, which is great, but so that's what's caused some of the parking issues. But what you see there is we have a comparable amount of square footage. We have a little less square footage. We have more than double the amount of restaurant parking for our restaurants, and we have more than double the amount of patio parking. And what we hope is, as you bring in more restaurants, they'll disperse across the 2 sites instead of having double the amount of people coming to the site.
Vice Mayor Garland has a question.
I have a quick question. This is the one question I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask it right now. How will you ensure that the parking from Postino's is not bleeding over into the new area? Just wondering if there's some way to be able to work that out, because the Postino's parking goes into the neighborhood behind it, and it's certainly a lot closer to just park across the street.
Maybe, yeah.
And so how do you think that might be able to be worked out?
Well, hopefully we do have an excess number of parking spaces right now. I think initially we have a valet plan, which I'm going to show you for the future, that we can actually double park our site on site. That will help, and we're also going to, hopefully we can all be good neighbors and not park at everybody's site. But we hope that instead of everybody going to Postino and you have another restaurant across the street, I don't think you'll have double the people. You'll just have some people not go to Postino because if it's crowded and go across the street.
Okay.
And then so you have 2 places for that one person.
Okay. That makes
versus
sense.
double the number of cars.
Okay. Thank you.
That's our goal, and I think that's what you see in other locations where you have 2 neighborhood centers across the street from each other.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Amberg?
Oh, no, okay.
Oh, she's here.
Sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Mongela. I have a question. Would you guys consider one of the restaurants that you're putting in there to be a breakfast and lunch restaurant? That way you can spread out your restaurant parking so that at least one of the restaurants is, your patrons are going to be there in the morning and at lunch, and then the other 2, there'll be more late afternoon dinner.
Yeah, Councilmember Amberg. We actually we don't have a full leasing plan, but certainly that's what we're trying to do, is get more of a shared parking use. In addition, the intent was to kind of do shared parking between the amount of retail and restaurant. But yeah, our goal was to always try to find a restaurant, maybe a little dessert place, and then a dinner place. So it's not like 3 dinner restaurants. That is the goal. No promises, but that is our goal.
Okay.
So I'll quickly keep going my parking.
All right.
So what we intend is, we think we're going to have 2,000 new trips, 188 to Councilmember Amberger's plan in the morning, and 231 in the afternoon. Just to very quickly talk about capacity on the roads, I know there's been some commentary about whether Rural and Warner, I know they get backed up, but there's certainly enough capacity, as you see here, in terms of the new trips at this site, small number of trips that will add to the general capacity of Rural, which is a 6-lane road. And then again, on Warner, in terms of, as you're going east and west, 3% additional traffic on Warner. The other thing that we talked a little bit about the DRC, and we've talked during the neighborhood meetings, is just about kind of convenient access. You're at a corner, so this light allows you to kind of use both sides and make left turns and right turns at the light if you need to. And the site has been very purposely designed to make sure that you can have, the site, as we've all driven by it, is not that big. So you can easily get to Warner and Rural and use the light to make turning motions if for some reason the traffic is backed up on Warner. And just to give you a sense of just a little bit to the east, what we're talking about is, you know, whether this site is appropriate for commercial development. In McClintock, which has 4 lanes, you can see the amount of commercial development the McClintock can handle. And then in Rural, which has 6 lanes, we're going to now have about 60,000 square feet of commercial. So Rural is more than appropriate to have this type of commercial development. I won't get it. This is a turning radius that, if we need it later, I'll get into, but I don't know that we need to talk about the turning right now. And then just to talk a little bit, I know we had some conversations about drive separation, and so I thought this was very helpful for those especially who live down there. You can see that the kind of separation between 71st Street and our access is very similar to kind of what's happening on the east side of the street, and how that access at the Postino site works in terms of how you can kind of manage in and out. And I think that you can use either Warner or Rural, or just to give you a sense of what the distance is between 71st Street and our access point, which we think has more than a queuing lane and should not block any access on 71st Street. And then this is our landscape plan. One thing we've been working with the city about, and certainly helpful with Diana, Jeff, and Ryan, in terms of trying to make sure that it's, and neighbors can, you know, shade along the trees. I mean, trees, lots of trees. There's no trees now, but there's lots of trees along Warner and Rural. You'll have access points into, from the exterior of the buildings. And just to give you some pictures of it, we actually have added some additional shading on the exterior, but you know, this is kind of a mid-century modern contemporary look, low-scale buildings, we think very appropriate for the neighborhood. Really excited just to give you a little sense, kind of in terms of color, cool kind of modernish signage. This is kind of the interior patio right at the corner that you might see people kind of hanging out, hopefully having breakfast, as Councilmember Amber said. And then this is building 1 as you kind of come in. And then this along Warner, to give you a sense of just the trees and kind of the shading, kind of articulation, so have the buildings help shade you with the detached sidewalk. And again, along Rural. In terms of, we have just some sustainability comments in terms of drought-tolerant landscaping. We have shaded glazing, LED fixtures. We have extended the canopy on the western facades, and our bike parking exceeds the code requirement. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, just very quickly, here's our valet plan. So we can, go ahead.
Councilmember Chin?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Voss, thank you. I appreciate you addressing the parking and the availability of parking. It's been expressed to me by some residents, their concerns because they frequent the northeast corner. But so I appreciate that, the inclusion of that and addressing that. That's very important. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else from council, any further comments or questions? Councilmember Hodge?
Okay, my question is, I know we're going to be very close to Corona, so you make sure when you find businesses that they're okay to hire high school students around, because it's going to be really close to this high school, and I want employment for our high school students too. So I know some businesses I've heard that they do 18 and plus, but I'm just asking if you can ask that question, is it okay that we have some of our students around to do
Oh,
if they
of
hire?
course, yeah,
Thank
Councilmember
you.
Hodge, we expect, anticipate these will be more local and certainly community-based businesses.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
Love it. Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. I know it's been a long time coming, trying to get something in this corner. And those of us that have been here for that amount of time have been hearing it for forever. So I do appreciate this project. I think it's great. I would ask you to continue, to Councilmember Chin's point, continue doing what you are doing as far as educating residents about the mitigation tactics that you're using with regards to parking. I know they're concerned about their neighborhood and things like that. And we just want to make sure that moving forward, it's a project that everyone can be comfortable with. And this is actually, I met with a gentleman about PQI the other day, and the conversation kind of veered from PQI to, amenities in South Tempe, and I explained some of the challenges of developing in South Tempe, particularly that corner. And when I told him what it was, he loved it because his wife had told him it was going to be HUD housing.
Oh.
So I guess you do have a little bit of work to do still as far as
We're
educating.
trying to get I will tell our people in South Tempe that they still need to get the word out.
Right. I think that's really kind of the only challenge with this, is that because there's been so long that the
Yes.
sign, as you know, says commercial
Yes.
or condos or whatever.
Yeah.
So, just keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to supporting this project.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Adams.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just am very supportive of this project. I think it's going to be really good. I have heard, there's a sign that says like condos or apartments, so I don't know how soon you guys can get that sign down, but it is misleading to people because I've had to do the same thing that Randy has. But I'm super supportive of this project, and I think it's going to really transform that corner to the positive. And instead of looking at a dirt lot, we're going to have some nice restaurants and amenities in South Tempe, and I think it's going to be a great meeting place too for neighbors to meet, and just like Postino's and Ghost Ranch is. So thank you very much for bringing this project forward. I know it wasn't easy, but I appreciate your tenacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Adams, Councilmember Keating. Yeah, the sign will come down hopefully just soon after our approval.
Okay, great.
I'll just say this very quickly. I'll save most of my comments for the next hearing, but what I'm really excited about with this project is I think about all the different parts of the city that we're simultaneously working on. This has been, I know, an issue for a lot of South Tempe residents for quite some time, is having this big vacant corner. I've lived in Tempe for over 21 years, and driving by that corner, it's just, it's a non-revenue generating corner that doesn't do any good for the surrounding residents. So the fact that this project is coming, it's really going to be exciting, I know, for South Tempe residents to have even more opportunities to eat and drink and have other lifestyle amenities that are right directly adjacent, whether it's a short car ride or a bike ride or the ability to walk to get lunch or breakfast or dinner. So I think that's really exciting. But I think about all the work that's being done in all the other parts of the city as well. So South Tempe is going to get a great new space where people can gather and eat and spend time together. I think about a lot of the stuff that's going on in North Tempe. We talked about, the Scottsdale and McKellop side, and I think about a lot of the work going on at the downtown now to really breathe new life into that. So just sort of a comment, for all of our residents who are here or watching in the audience, all the work that we're trying to collectively do to fix all of these parts of the city at the same time. But I'm really happy for our South Tempe residents. They've talked about, hey, if we can actually revitalize a lot of the downtown environment, we would love to come back downtown too in really big numbers and spend our tax revenue in the downtown. But at the same time, we would also like to have additional food and beverage and arts and culture options in our own neck of the woods in South Tempe. So I'm really, really happy that this project is frankly going to deliver on that promise. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. All right, next up, we have our public testimony portion. I've got one card this evening, and that card is from Janet Hamlin. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Hi, my name is Janet Hamlin. I'm a resident of Tempe. I just wanted to say I live in Warner Ranch. I'm really close to this development, and I am looking forward to the planned development. Our area does need more places to gather, to shop, and to eat that are walking and biking distance. And that are close to our neighborhoods. Currently, I walk to the shops on the northeast corner of Warner and Rural. I also walk over to the northeast corner of Warner and Kyrene. We are a walking and biking community, so this is a great place to add one more spot in that we can get to. I appreciate the character. I appreciate the landscape and the pedestrian access. I also want to say that my neighborhood, I exit out of Forest, which is 2/10 of a mile west of 71st Street that they were referencing as being 290 feet from the exit. I do not have an issue entering or exiting my neighborhood. During the busy times of day, I do have to wait before I can just immediately pull out onto Warner. But the traffic lights are set so that I always get a break and I do not have to wait very long. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, and I look forward to having a new place to go eat in my neighborhood.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's the only card I had this evening on that item. Is anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on item 8B1? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public testimony portion of the public hearing. Council members, any additional comments? All right, hearing none, the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for September 19th, 2024. Okay, the next item I need to move up here, and then we will get back to the rest of the agenda in order. This is not the right number for this item. Here it is. 8C4. Oh, 8C3. Oh, okay. I will get right back. I promise. I'll get to this one too. 8C4 is the next one I just called, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance amending the Tempe City Code by adding Section 22-18 to Chapter 22, prohibiting the possession and sale to minors of brass knuckles or any device made of metal, plastic, or any hard material designed to fit over and around the knuckles or fingers of the human hand to enhance the power of a punch for aggressive fighting with the intent to cause injury. This is also a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? I think I've got some cards on this, actually. I do. The first speaker I have this evening is Bridget Vega. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Bridget Vega, Gilbert, Arizona. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I stand here to be a voice for the voiceless and for the children. Thank you for listening to the community, where I've spoke across the East Valley on teen violence in council and school board meetings, where public comment has moved to the end in some instances, where we've sat waiting till 11 o'clock at night and getting out by midnight just to have, and we also have to have our cards in by 6 in order to speak. Thank you, Council Member Hodge, for taking the lead on this ordinance. We as a community support the brass knuckle ordinance. Thank you, Tempe, for taking the most comprehensive approach on this ordinance thus far, while taking a stand against teen violence and no brass knuckles. We have seen the trauma and impact that has plagued our community due to not only the culture of turning a blind eye, but it's also refreshing to see decision makers taking a stand to eradicate teen violence and put a deterrent in place to stop allowing the abusers to continue to perpetuate intentional infliction of emotional distress on the youth in the community due to senseless acts of violence. Connor Jarnigan, a victim of a brass knuckle attack in Gilbert, who was robbed and brutally assaulted by brass knuckles outside and in and out. He continues to take a stand in the face of adversity and be a beacon of hope for the community, and he continues to stand at the state level to pass a ban on this deadly weapon. I want to acknowledge Connor's perseverance, strength, and courage for being an impactful voice to creating a safer community. Thank you, Connor and Stephanie, for taking a stand and continually remaining civically involved. Over the last 11 months especially, as victims have been retaliated against and our communities have been terrorized due to senseless acts of violence. Our youth deserves justice. Tempe, let's rise up and please continue to keep the families who've been directly impacted in your prayers. To the youth, we hear you, we see you, we stand by you. We love you. If we can take a moment of silence for all of the youth and those who've been assaulted and wrongfully murdered due to senseless acts of violence. Connor, we love you and want to give you this frame as a reminder to stay strong, one city at a time. We will get justice for the youth. Thank you, Tempe. And
Thank you.
as a community, we're just giving him this frame as his faith has been a major role in healing. So thank you, guys.
Beautiful, thank you. The next speaker I have is Carissa Arnold. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I just want to reiterate what Bridget said, as we've just been working to just help our teens out. There was a huge mental health crisis specifically going on with a lot of our boys in schools, and they're not getting the help in their homes and schools. And we are seeing the devastating effects that it's having on victims specifically. As I had shared, my daughter was a victim in a much different situation, and I almost lost her to suicide as she contemplated taking her life after what had happened to her. And we have situations here that are not much different in the fact that we know that there are kids taking their lives within schools because they've been victims of crimes and then they're getting bullied within the schools. So we're asking that you take note of the brass knuckles law and that we work to help keep our kids safer here. There isn't any reason why minors need to be holding these weapons in their hands. They don't have the maturity to handle them. They don't have enough mindset to know when they should and should not be used. And they're taking their anger out on their fellow students and their fellow peers. So we ask that, again, you consider this ban. So thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Connor Jarmigan. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Connor Jarnigan, and I'm a resident of Chandler. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Councilmember Hodge for championing the Brass Knuckles ordinance tonight, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here. In December 2022, I was assaulted by a Gilbert goon in the head with brass knuckles at the Santan In-N-Out in Gilbert. When I was randomly and unexpectedly hit from behind in the back of my head, I immediately felt blood rushing from the back of my head and soaking into my sweater and back. The individual who hit me was 16 at the time, which is the same age that I was. I did not know him, but I do find it disturbing that he could have purchased brass knuckles anywhere in the East Valley at the time. While he was talking to me and trying to get me to give him money, he suspiciously had his hands tucked in his hoodie. The reason was because he was wearing brass knuckles with spikes on them. Brass knuckles are dangerous weapons designed with a single purpose in mind, to inflict maximum harm among another human being. Unlike many other weapons, brass knuckles are specifically engineered to enhance the force of a punch, turning a relatively harmless blow into a potential lethal weapon. I know this because doctors told me if the punch were to be an inch to the left, I could have been paralyzed or killed. Like many Arizonans, I am proud of our freedom and individual rights, so it may seem counterintuitive for me to advocate for the banning of any object. Based on my personal experience, I believe there are certain weapons whose sole purpose is to cause harm, and whose presence in our society serves no legitimate purpose. Banning brass knuckles is a public safety issue and not a Second Amendment issue. That's why 38 other states have already banned or put in laws in place regulating brass knuckles. I'm working to ensure that Arizona is ultimately added to that list. By taking decisive action tonight to ban citizens from possessing brass knuckles in public and also ban the sale of them to minors, your city will not only help foster a safer community, but you will also lead the effort to create a full ban on brass knuckles in Arizona. I'm very grateful for how thoughtful and comprehensive this ordinance is, and I am looking to potentially use this ordinance as a model for our next attempt to get legislation passed at the state level that will restrict using brass knuckles in public. Thank you again for drafting and supporting such an amazing ordinance. in hopes of public safety, and I'm hoping it'll pass unanimously tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker I have is Stephanie Jarmigan. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Stephanie Jarnigan, and I live in Chandler, Arizona. Thank you, Mary Woods, Councilmember Hodge, and all of council for taking action tonight on the proposed brass knuckles ordinance. As you heard from Connor, this ordinance hits close to home for our family. If you asked me what I thought about brass knuckles on the morning of December 30th, 2002, I'd probably tell you that they never crossed my mind, and that I'd only ever seen or heard of them in the movies in a violent crime scene related to the mafia. I would never have thought that they would be used right here in my own East Valley community by teens to inflict maximum harm on my son and other unsuspecting innocent teens. And I was absolutely appallingly shocked to hear that brass knuckles had been used several times in prior attacks at the very In-N-Out where Connor was injured. When our world changed that night, we had to grapple with the fact that brass knuckles, a deadly weapon that is either banned or restricted in 38 states but not Arizona, caused a significant head injury to my son, one that could easily have taken his life. But beyond the physical injury, brass knuckles attacks leave a lifetime of internal scars and emotional wounds that will no doubt take years to fully heal from. Our family decided to deal with the trauma of our personal experience by taking a stand against brass knuckles and supporting laws and legislation that regulate or restrict their use. Brass knuckles are not used in self-defense. They are an offensive weapon that threatens public safety, especially when wielded by teens who have no apparent regard for human life or remorse for their actions, like we've seen with the Gilbert Goons cases. Tempe's brass knuckles ordinance is the most comprehensive one to date, and it takes an extra step beyond what Chandler and Gilbert have put in place, because this ordinance prohibits possession of brass knuckles for everyone in public, not just minors. Like we've said many times before, brass knuckles have no place in our society. Additionally, the thoughtfully crafted language within your ordinance ensures that there won't be any loopholes with regard to the material that they are made of, be it brass, metal, bone, plastic. They come in many forms and all are dangerous. We are grateful to Councilmember Hodge for her leadership on this issue and also for her commitment to championing this issue within the school district she also represents. We plan to revisit potential state legislation in the next session and hope to see bipartisan support for this public safety issue. We encourage everyone who shares our views to go to nobrassknuckles.org and sign your support for regulations or restrictions on brass knuckles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the last card I had this evening on this item. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close the public testimony portion of the public hearing. I'm going to look over here. Councilmember Hodge.
Yes, I want to thank every single one of you guys who spoke. Connor, thank you for being the man you are to stand and fight. You're not only fighting for you, but you're fighting for Preston Lord too. As a governing board member, one of the things I do day in and day out is think about the safety of my kids and the safety of my community around them. And hearing that brass knuckles was such a problem, because as like you, it wasn't on my mind in the beginning because no one thinks about it until it actually happens. Yes, I want to thank all the people. I want to thank my assistant, Sapan, who worked diligent on this, and with the police and everybody in the city of Tempe. Thank you guys for putting so much effort behind it. Because yes, we do have the most intense and we have the most comprehensive version of this. And I want to vow to you right now, not only will I take it to my school districts, I will fight along with you. When you go to the Capitol, I will take it all the way to the top with you. At that moment, I just wanted to say, because it's emotional to me. It is because my son went to school in NYU, and his friend got beat up with brass knuckles. He survived, but he lived to tell it. But in New York, it's against the law, so they got prosecuted. it was definitely a difference on how your case went versus how his case went. So this is something we're going to have to continue to fight, and I'm proud to stand on this dais with all 7 of you guys, 6 of you guys with me, 7, to make this motion to pass this brass knuckle section 22 to 18.
Sounds good. A motion has been made by Councilmember Hodge, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Keating?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Connor, for coming to speak to us tonight and sharing your story with us. Until the Gilbert Goon story got broken, people really didn't know anything about brass knuckles or the ways that they were used in violent attacks against teens in our East Valley community. And you know, your mother said something pretty profound that I hadn't really thought about, that you know, brass knuckles are a weapon of offense. Mm-hmm. You're not really carrying these things around in case someone starts trouble with you. You're carrying them around because you are looking to start trouble. And frankly, can't back up that trouble with just your fist if you're going to start it. So it's a cowardly weapon. It's a weapon that doesn't have any place in the hands of teenagers or angry young men without access to some of the mental health services that they may need. So I thank you for coming and sharing this, championing this issue. I thank Councilmember Hodge for bringing this before us today. I know this is something that you're very passionate about, and it's something that's needed. And I hope that other councils follow your leadership around the East Valley and start building a coalition of cities that aren't going to allow this type of violence in their cities. So let me be the first to say I'm happy to support this, and if it's not premature, to congratulate you on passing this ordinance, Councilmember Hodge. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Garland?
I just know how long Councilmember Hodge has been working on this. It's been quite some time. So I just want to say thank you to her for bringing that to the city, and thank you for staff for working on this. And Connor, when you're ready to go to Capitol, you just let us know. Councilmember Hodge and I can carpool, and we'll be there to support you, because this is really important for our community, not just the city of Tempe, but the whole state. And just really appreciate what you have done and how you have stepped up and how you've made this important, and how you've made us, the rest of us, recognize how important this is. So thank you, and we'll be there. We got you.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Hodge, for bringing this forward. This issue, as I stated last time this was brought up, is near and dear to my heart, as my brother was attacked when he was in 9th grade with brass knuckles, and really was hurt, and he had to have surgery, and it was very traumatic. There's blood, running out of his eye where he had gotten it, and it was a very serious situation. So I'm very supportive of this. I think it's a long time coming. I appreciate your perseverance, Councilmember Hodge, on this issue, and I'm certainly glad to support it. And will do my best to work with other cities also and our state reps to get this passed on a state level. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members' additional comments? Just one other thing, too, I just wanted to say, Connor, thank you again for your bravery in coming forward to talk about this and share your experience and bring even more awareness to this really important issue. And I know that, all my colleagues have talked about wanting to take this to the state capitol, and I obviously completely support that effort. One of the things I think we can also do as well is many times be a voice with all of the other cities and towns that haven't yet adopted this. I would love to try to get this through at a statewide level, as would all of us. But in the meantime, too, I'd like to make sure that if there are other cities that you were frankly having conversations with where you haven't seen any movement as of yet, all of us sitting up here have relationships with council members and all of the other 90 cities and towns throughout the state of Arizona. So if there are other people that you'd like to talk to, or places where you're trying to get this on the agenda, please feel free to talk to us and let us know where those places are. We would be glad to work with each and every one of you. And just once again, thank you, Councilmember Hodge, for your leadership in bringing this forward. I've known you for a long time, and the biggest thing for you, I know that always touches your heart, what motivates you to do this work, whether it's as a city council member or as a governing board member, is really advocacy for our youth and making sure that they're safe and get a quality education and can grow up in a safe community. And so this ordinance is just, once again, an example of your continued dedication to the young people. So I really want to say I really appreciate you and your work and appreciate your leadership. So thank you. With that said, there's been a first and a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, please vote.
Very enthusiastic aye.
And that item passes unanimously, 7-0. All right. The next item I have, where I do have a speaker card, so once I always like to move up the items where we have speakers, is 8C3, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned properties located at 1906 East Meadow Drive and 5002 South Alder Drive to the Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing Incorporated, an Arizona nonprofit corporation, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement to convey property, covenants, deeds, and all other related documents necessary to effect such conveyances and related transactions. This is also a public hearing item, and I do have one card this evening to start, and that's Ms. Antill. Please come forward and state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ann Till, Tempe, and I actually live just a few houses from this house, and I'm happy about it. I've been asking Irma about it, so I'm glad to see it. But I have had a little discussion. I had it with Eric Iverson about with the Rain to Roots program, about how they could take these homes and possibly, that they're remodeling them, and I don't know how much landscaping they're doing, but can they put gutters and direct water into trees and put low water use plants, because the people living there are going to be, it's affordable housing, so that would save water bills, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a project with the resident, maybe they don't have time for that though, or maybe it's something they could do while they're remodeling the house as they get it ready with the Coalition of Affordable Housing. So it seems like a good way to implement the Rain to Roots program in a residential area and possibly use it for demonstration. You know, so it's another GSI thing, which is something that the city is interested in. So. And I've also want to point out that I've pointed Irma to several properties in my neighborhood because my neighborhood, and I went over this last year, has everything. It's got multiple buses, it's got bike paths, it's got every business and doctor and everything. It's perfect for people who don't have cars. It's near ASU, it's near MCC, all those things. But anyways, there's one country club Way right across from Shalimar, that's 3250 South Country Club Way. It's 3/4 acres. And the developers actually already brought the plans, they're approved for that spot, and now they're selling that property. And it seems like a perfect Habitat for Humanity project. So I mentioned it to Irma, I don't know what happened with it. There's another one behind the church at Loma Vista and McClintock that doesn't have parking, but it's like the church has been trying to sell it for years, but there's no driveway to it. So maybe it's like a cul-de-sac kind of project. But I've also let her know about many vacant homes in our neighborhood. So anyways, the only last comment on these types of homes, I think they're a great idea, but I think the person who sold it was a first-time homeowner, or I mean a long-term homeowner. She's the only owner. So you know, a lot of those homes, you know, the resident ends up moving out and they're like wanting to sell it really fast so that they can pay for care of an elderly person. So I think it would be a great idea for the city to, you know, let people know that they actually do homes like this, and maybe they can get home inventory and help the family get it sold faster.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's the only speaker card I have on item 8C3. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public testimony portion of the public hearing. Council members, any comments or discussion?
Yes, so move.
It's been moved by Councilmember Hodge, seconded by Councilmember Keating.
Second.
Please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And that item passes 7-0. All right, now I'm going to go back to the beginning here of the non-consent agenda with the items that we haven't covered quite yet. All right, I should also note that all items listed on the non-consent agenda will be considered separately. Agenda items scheduled for introduction and first public hearing will be heard but will not be voted upon at this meeting. Agenda items scheduled for second public hearing and final adoption will be voted upon tonight. Council members who may have a conflict of interest may abstain from voting on a matter, and the city clerk will provide the council members with the disclosure form at this time. First off, item 8A, miscellaneous items, bids, contracts, and resolutions. The only item under the section is 8A1, which is to approve a one-year contract renewal with Vincier Cancer Center for a cancer screening program for fire, medical, and rescue personnel. Council, any comments or discussion? It's been moved by Councilmember Hodge.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
And that item also passes 7-0. The next section on the non-consent agenda is ordinances and items for introduction and first hearing. The items under this section will be read and introduced tonight, but no substantive votes will be taken. The second hearings and votes are scheduled for September 19th, 2024. We've already covered 8B1, so that takes us to item 8B2, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the granting of a power distribution easement to Salt River Project Agricultural Improvement and Power District over certain city-owned land located at 3031 South Hardy Drive, and authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an easement agreement and related documents. This is also a public hearing item. Is there any public testimony? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, I'll close the public testimony portion. Council, any comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, I want to reiterate the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for September 19th, 2024. The next section on the non-consent agenda is ordinances and items scheduled for second hearing and final adoption. So votes on these items will be taken tonight. The first item under the section is 8C1, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Tempe City Code relating to administration and the City Code generally, dissolving the Engineering and Transportation Department, the Municipal Utilities Department, and Sustainability and Resilience Office, establishing the Public Works Department and the Transportation and Sustainability Department, relocating the Education, Career, and Family Services Office to the Community Health and Human Services Department, and relocating Neighborhood Services from the Community Development Department to the City Manager's Office. This is also a public hearing item. Is there any public testimony? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, I will close the public testimony portion. Council members, any comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, I will look for a motion on item 8C1. It's been moved by Councilmember Chin and seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote.
Aye.
And Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
Oh, there we go.
Aye.
And that item passes 7-0. The next item under the section is 8C2, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the granting of a power distribution easement to Salt River Project Agricultural Improvement and Power District over certain city-owned land located at 800 East Divot Drive, and authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an easement agreement and related documents. This is also a public hearing item. If there's any public testimony, please get my attention. Seeing none, I'll close the public testimony portion. Council members, any comments or discussion? Moved by Councilmember Hodge and seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams? Councilmember Adams? And that item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Adams absent. And that,
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
I can hear you now. Can I retroactively
I
give
voted 3 times.
You voted yes? Mr. City Attorney, am I retroactively allowed to make that unanimous?
Yes, Mayor, you can reopen.
All right, Councilmember Adams, the City Attorney is allowing it, so that also passes 7-0. And that takes us to the end of that agenda. And brings us to item number 9, current events, council announcements, and future agenda items. Once again, council members may request also that an agenda item be added to a future council meeting during their allotted time, but in accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on the item other than to clarify the request. So I'll now call upon council members for their comments and or requests to add items to a future agenda. I'm going to start this evening with Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a moment to wish Councilmember Hodge a happy birthday. She turned 39 a couple days ago. So I just wanted to say happy birthday, Bridetta. Hope you had a good time.
All right.
Had a really good time.
Next up, Councilmember Adams.
No announcements this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Next up, Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one. Is there a slide? No slide. There it is. Lost Our Home Pet Rescue is a Tempe nonprofit that has been helping pets and people in crisis for 15 years. This Saturday, they will have a adoption extravaganza. They want to clear the shelters. So there will be reduced adoption fees and raffle prizes that you can take home with your pets. They are located at 2323 South Hardy Drive. You can visit lostourhome.org for more information.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Next up, Councilmember Hodge.
Yes, I just wanted to give a shout out to Tempe St. Luke for taking care of me when I sprained my ankle and broke my wrist. So thank you so much, Tempe St. Luke. That's me taking a picture with them, thanking them.
Happy 80th anniversary,
That's
St.
right.
Luke's.
Happy 80th anniversary. And also, I thought that it would be great to say how much fun my colleagues in my city is at the League of Cities. We were the #1 city. I'll put it out there right now. We had the best party ever. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who put effort and time into it. And I'm so proud and honored to be a part of the city and serve with everyone. So thank you, guys. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hodge. Next up, Councilmember Amberg.
No, sir.
All right. Next up, Vice Mayor Garland.
I just have one comment. I want to say congratulations to our past council member, Robin Arredondo Savage. She is now the interim CEO of the Tempe Chamber of Commerce, and they couldn't have received another more perfect person for that position. She's absolutely incredible. She's a small business owner, a veteran. She's been on the Tempe Chamber board before. I think she's just a perfect fit, and she's absolutely amazing. And I just want to say congratulations to Robin.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll echo all those comments. Once again, congratulations to Chief Reese on his honor this morning. Obviously, as well, happy birthday to Councilmember Hodge, and congratulations to our colleague, the Honorable Robin Arredondo Savage, on her appointment as the interim CEO at the Tempe Chamber. With that, I'll move on to item number 10, public appearances. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the City Council? If so, please come forward and state your name and city of residence for the record. Seeing none, that takes me to item number 11, which is adjournment. The next regular scheduled City Council meeting is going to be on September 19th, 2024. We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.